All right, Zelzy, I see you're wearing the Sharks colors and I'm wearing the Bulls colors because we only wear colors of winners. Beautiful. We've been asking for Johan Ackermann to arrive at the Bulls. We've been asking for Akkers to coach the forwards. And finally, Akkers has done that. And guess what? The Bulls start playing like a team.
Exactly, mate. I mean, that's the most Bulls rugby that I've seen since Akkers got there. I think they're 3 on the trot now. They've won. First time this season, the Bulls kicked the volume of kicks that they kicked. Most kicks they've kicked all season also coincided with their most points of the season, which is insane. I mean, how is that possible? Because you can't score a point if you don't have the balls. So how did the Bulls score all those points if they didn't have a ball? Well, I'll tell you how they did it, mate. They controlled the field, and when they got opportunities, they converted them because they put the Lions under massive pressure. They also just went forward whenever they had the ball, mate. Incredible. The Lions didn't have an answer for that, and this is coming from a guy who tipped the Lions to maybe win that game. So very disappointed for the Lions. They're going to have to regroup now, obviously, and they'll have a look at how the Bulls got some ascendancy over them. But kudos to the Bulls. Great result for them, and they've definitely got their tails up now.
Look, they've won 3 on the road. They've won in France, they've won in Scotland, and they've won in Johannesburg. 3 different countries. Wins. Yeah. The XK Derby, what really impressed me about that game was we both tipped a very high-scoring game. You said Lions to potentially shade it. I said the Bulls to win it. But we both thought it would be one of those 40-32 games, helter-skelter for an hour, and let's see who's still standing. The Bulls came out and played with precision. They played with a forward pack that had a collective. Their back rowers were outstanding in the carries. Pollard played percentages, as did Ambrose Papier. When they got the opportunity, when they got the opportunity to strike, they did. But this is a team that was conceding 40 points on average a game and conceding 4 tries by half time. It took 45 minutes for the Lions to score, and then they scored again in the 81st minute. And the Bulls had made 37 tackles on 49 minutes and the Lions 107. And I just felt that whenever we speak about Akkers as a coach and what he did at the Lions, what he did at Gloucester, it was that kind of grunt, physicality, and not boring rugby, but actually understanding where to play. And it really was, for me, the most impressive Bulls performance of the season, because the Lions came into the game 2 draws overseas, confident. They're a team that does trouble you at Ellis Park. And in the spiritual home of South African rugby, in what was Akkers' home all the time, the only thing foreign was he was in the visiting coach's box, in the visiting change room. But the memories were the same. It looked like his Lions team of old, destroying teams. And I thought they were outstanding in getting that win. And a big, big red flag to the rest of the competition to say, finally, these Oaks have arrived, and maybe they're going to time their run to perfection in the back end of the URC. And they play like that, they've got a chance to go to Glasgow and potentially win in the Investec Champions Cup quarterfinal match played on the weekend of the 3rd and the 4th against Franco Smith's Glasgow Warriors. But Akkers took over the coaching of those forwards 3 weeks ago and said, that's my baby, that's what I do. And isn't that, again, indicative of so many head coaches? We saw that with Rassie at one stage. We saw that with Jake. They've got to take charge of their specialist areas because that's what makes them, that's how they got there. And they were just a different animal with Akkers actually saying the forwards are mine.
No, totally. I mean, the irony of it is that we've been accusing Akkers of trying to turn the Bulls into the Lions to this point in the campaign. And then in the game where they actually go back to Ellis Park, he produces absolute Bulls rugby. It's not so much that the Bulls' defense has improved as much. It's that it's been massively complemented by the kicking game and the attack in this match at Ellis Park. So Bulls control the field, control the sky, and then the attack was absolutely brutal. Front door, physical, and as far as the Lions were concerned, unstoppable. And that brought everybody else into play. Suddenly everybody looked 50% better, stronger, faster, more amazing. And that is the nature of rugby. When you control the field, when you're only tackling at 80%, but you're in enemy territory, you can kind of clean it up. When you're tackling at 80% on your own try line, that's a big problem. So controlling the field is a huge thing, and the Bulls got that right on the weekend. Emrose Papir, mate, I've been waiting for it for years and years and years and years. What a breakout game for him. I mean, that oak is in some serious form. It's been building for some time, but absolutely instrumental in big moments in that game.
People forget Emrose Papir was on Rassie's radar in 2018. He chose him as a Springbok. We're now 8 years later, but I think that's the kind of potential he saw in him. And Akkers has also given him the confidence where there was a time where was it Zach Berger starting, was it Emrose Papir starting, Keegan Johannes was floating between 9 and 10. It's like you are the 9. And I do think having the old head and the wise head of a back-to-back World Cup winning Andre Pollard outside of him has certainly helped. And Polly, I mean, he was indifferent at times, but very controlled and very composed. He actually knows what he wants to do, and sometimes his execution isn't at its finest, but at least he's got a plan. And outside of him, then you get a Harold Foster that looked like he was 19, played with determination, ran with initial acceleration and then intelligence, and when to put the grubber through or when to look for the offload or take the contact. Stravino Jacobs looks like he's shed 5 kilograms mentally and physically on the chart. And then to have a David Creel come off the bench and really provide some impact because he can play anywhere. But then just going back, the carries of the back row, and the Marcel Coetzee, that was like his type of game. Ulrich Hello, the Sheriff is really, I always say he could be a Jean Smith's love child. I mean, he reminds me so much of Jean Smith in the way he plays, uncompromised, he never smiles, just gets stuck in. And then Jean-Andre Rudolph. So that back three, and then Ron Nokia obviously doing his bit. A solid set piece. But the Lions were never in that game. And the one thing about the Lions, win or lose, they're always in a game. They always score a lot of tries. So for a team that defensively has been so vulnerable all season, what I love most about the Bulls was their desire to tackle when they had to. Their want to keep them out. Even when they were 40-odd up, they were still not just being charitable and saying, you score, we're going to score again. There's been such a mental shift in that team since they went to Pau and got that result, went to Edinburgh and fought for that result, and it all clicked against the Lions. Pity the Lions, and a wonderful way for them to go into the break. 5 from 10 in the league now, 3 in a row, and they come back in the next 3 weeks thinking we're the form team, and that is the jeopardy of this rugby season that our guys play in. You don't win the URC in December. You can potentially lose it in December, but you don't win it. You don't win the Investec Champions Cup in January. It's by the time you play those quarterfinals, teams can look very different. And if you think of how the Stormers were out the blocks and incredible 8 from 8, and it's just a magnificent effort to have those points on the board, which gives them a little bit of comfort going into this 2-week break that they're still in the top 4, 3rd place in the league, despite the back-to-back defeats against the Sharks. But then the Sharks also edging towards that top 8. The Lions there, one win, 2 wins either way in the first fortnight of the URC, and you could have 4 South African teams in the top 8 quite comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I don't know if you just want to skip over and talk Six Nations now, and then we can wrap it up and move on to next week.
No, I want to talk about the Sharks. They were outstanding. They were outstanding, and that's why you were yeah, that's what I love about you, mate. Is in sport, when you play a rival and he clocks you home and away, you take it on the chin and you think, I hope I don't play them in the playoffs. Okay. Season. But you actually acknowledge it and you walk away. 39 in Cape Town, and it was 30-12 until the 79th minute. 36-24, and it could have been a lot more in Durban. 9 tries scored against one of the best defensive teams in the league, who only scored 5, and they scored 1 in the 79th minute in Cape Town and 1 in the first 22 seconds in Durban. 4 yellow cards to the Stormers, 2 in Cape Town, 2 in Durban. 32 penalties conceded, 15 in Cape Town, 17 in Durban. You don't win games like that. And I would like to think, and you're part of that management team, that the Stormers go into recess now and they're a bit honest with themselves. 8 from 8, but hey, we took a whipping in both games. It's not the match officials. You can blame all the conditions. You can blame all the external things. But the only thing the Stormers can look at is their own decision-making and their own execution. And Dobbo said it, and Sasha, after the Cape Town match, and I was at that press conference, as was Gavin Rich. I think you were hovering outside, but I may as well have been in Cape Town again when I heard their narrative after Durban. Lack of accuracy, lack of discipline, lack of execution. And that comes down to the players, I'm afraid to say, on the field, big decision moments. And at 24-14, somehow they had wrestled the momentum away from the Sharks. Again, a poor execution, a penalty, a try, a yellow card, 2 tries, and they're under the pump.
Mate, well said. Great summary. Yeah, look, the bottom line is in both of those games, the Sharks trapped us in the kitchen. We couldn't get out. And as the heat went up and the pressure told, our decision-making faltered and our discipline evaporated. And I think that just compounded those issues. So definitely lots of room for improvement. Statistically, there were some improvements on the first game and the second game. The result was the same. And that's something that has to be addressed. So back to the drawing board. Obviously want to make the most of the break and then come out firing again, but lots to ponder. And I think, when you're confronted by a team and you're sort of challenged by a team, you have 2 options there. You can try and escape that pressure, or you can try and confront that pressure. And maybe at times we were guilty of trying to escape it rather than confront it. And I think we've got the cattle to confront pressure. We just have to have our mindset in that space. So I don't think it's big fixes. But there are things that need to be addressed there. And again, mate, like you said, massive kudos to the Sharks. Backed it up week to week. Obviously didn't down too much champagne last week. Kept them eye on the ball, and got everybody into Kings Park, and then rewarded them with the good results. So great job by them. I thought Jaden Hendrickson was outstanding when he came on in the second half. Just a great all-round performance.
Well, I mean, you look at JP Pietersen, they keep on calling him interim coach and making a big deal about their word interim. My message on social media to the owner, Marco Mazzotti, was make him the coach. Let him get on with it. He was the guy who said to Andre Esra's in 100th match, you're going to captain my side. Knowing that Sia was on his way out, he obviously wanted someone that he knew the players would follow. Andre Esra's form has been just on another level for the Sharks since he came back from the Springboks. He was imposing. I thought he should have been the player of the match in Cape Town. He wasn't even in the top 5. You know, that ridiculous voting system where on 55 minutes you basically got to choose who the player of the match is. And just, again, such a presence and a calmness. And to see Ethan Hooker on his outside, I mean, defensively, there's a few, there's a combination. There's a few things they're working on. But as an attacking threat, wow, to have those 2 in the midfield, you don't want to be tackling them too much. And then Grant Williams just played with such tempo in the first half. And then Jaden came on and he really schooled the Stormers. I just felt more so from 9 than 10. And Butch James made that point at halftime when he said the Stormers are trying to do so much kicking from Sasha at 10 and was under so much pressure. And he had 2 charge downs where all the kicking was coming from the base of the scrum from 9 for the Sharks. And they killed the Stormers in the aerial battle. I mean, they were just outstanding and pinpoint accuracy in the kick. And that was an area of strength for the Stormers in the first 5-6 matches of the season. And in Cape Town, they were poor, but in Durban, they really struggled under that high ball.
Yeah, look, the aerial contest and the scrum contest were 2 things that were a lottery for the Stormers. And those are 2 things. Oh, look, the scrum contest was actually a lottery for both teams. Neither the Sharks nor the Stormers really got any continuity or consistency there. But that penalty count mounted against the Stormers, and that kept the Sharks in the right space. And again, man, I'll always beat this drum. Like, when you manage to control the game so that you control where it's played, everybody looks better. Even when you make mistakes, it's not so much of an issue. You make a small mistake 30 centimeters from your line, it costs you a try. You make a small mistake 30 centimeters from their line, they have to exit, you get another launch. So it's about controlling the field, and I keep saying rugby operates in series or serial or whatever. There's building blocks, and for me, controlling the field is probably the number one priority. If you can control where the game is played, you can dictate terms, I think. So I think if the shoe had been on the other foot, we would be talking about the Stormers having 70% territory, how amazing the halfbacks looked, all the decisions went right, yada, yada, yada. The pressure really does flip based on field position. So that has to be a big priority, controlling that. So, and the Sharks did a great job of it. Andre came out afterwards and said that really put a big emphasis on the contestables game. He said the match was like a test match. So, it seems like their head is in the right space in terms of how they want to play. And kudos to JP for turning that thing around as quickly as he has.
Chatting to our main man, Gav Rich, and knows Shark Stormers more than Gav. Grew up, schooled, worked in the KZN area, then came to Cape Town, became a celebrated Cape Townian. But no, I know that he always wears a little something Sharks when the Sharks play the Stormers, a little Speedo or a little kind of vest, or he's got his little Sharky in his pocket. But he was quite circumspect on Saturday night as he was watching Liverpool when, as he said, Liverpool are finished. Hold that thought, they're not. And Liverpool went on to win 4-1. But Gav said, let's not forget that the Sharks beat the Bulls back-to-back in the SA Shield in the URC last year. And he says great wins. He feels good that they beat the Stormers because of the way they played. But they need to back it up with the same intensity against international opposition. Can they find the same grunt against an Edinburgh? Can they find the same grunt against a Munster, for example? And he kept on talking about the derby element. And also, I watched that thing and it just looked like an absolute Springbok training session. If you're not privy to, just want to tell this guy I can't talk to you now. If you're not privy to watching the box train contact, I felt like you got there for 80 minutes. It really was a Springbok squad of 30 going at each other. And
yeah,
just brutal at times, and then wonderful afterwards as they embraced each other. Each one knew the other one's strengths. They also knew their vulnerabilities. The Sharks now to get under Sash's skin. They niggle him off the ball. They wind him a Peleli Fassi on the way through when Yaka Kutsia scored that incredible try, giving him the nudge, mocking him, knowing that will get him riled for the kickoff. Kind of puts more pressure onto him. Damian Willems's eyes lighting up and thanking the gods that there was a forward pass as Andre the Giant bear down on him to bury him in the Kings Park turf. Sia and Damon embracing each other in a Red Bull embrace afterwards. There was just so much mate against mate, a brotherhood there. But
yeah,
in derbies, it's, and at the Investing Champions Cup launch, Trevor Anyakani was asked this question by John Smith. Why can't you Oaks play against the international opposition like you play against each other? When it comes to these South African derbies, it is just brutal.
Yeah, look, we just don't hate the foreigners enough. I think that's the problem. We love to go against each other. You love to play your cousins, eh? And look, I think the Stormers have got that right. They've found success against foreign teams and kind of worked out how to do that. We just need to get back to our gritty, most ferocious best against the South African sides and be efficient there. But 100%, these SA derbies are what it's all about. I still believe, commercially it can't work, but the Currie Cup is still at its sort of strength versus strength. It's still a great competition. If these guys had to play the Currie Cup of old, mate, if we could just if we were operating on pounds instead of rands and cents, it would be absolutely glorious because it really does produce some great rugby.
Well, what you saw on Saturday was basically strength v strength, the Currie Cup of old in the guise of the URC, and that's what I love about the Shield now. It's only relevant to each country's teams when they play. Scotland, Italy combine it for the Shield, but for the rest, Wales, it's just how do you go against your teams, Ireland and obviously South Africa, and that Shield is so tightly contested now. It could be one league point that decides it. The Sharks leading the way at the moment. The Stormers obviously will be disappointed that they've got the back-to-back defeats, but the break couldn't have come at a better time for the Stormers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, the break doesn't do anything on its own, right? You have to use the time to maximum efficiency. I think maybe some time off is a good thing, but definitely, whatever the issues are, need to be resolved during this time so we come back firing. And I think the first half of the season shows that the pedigree and the talent and the capacity is there. It's just about putting it together again. So maybe a reset is exactly what we needed. So yeah, let's see what happens. I think for the Sharks, they probably would want to keep on rolling a little bit. They've got some momentum now. The Bulls have got some momentum now. They probably want to keep it rolling a bit, but I'm sure all the players are absolutely celebrating that they're going to have some time away from the field and just kick up a bit and relax.
What does help both those teams, all the likes of the Sharks and the likes of the Bulls, is that they go back into South African derbies post the break as well. It's not like they're going overseas or they're entertaining an international team. So it's again that domestic rivalry mindset that's happening. Looking at At the past fortnight, though, I just look at some individuals and I think of a guy like Fassi who's really stood tall for the Sharks and shown some of
Yeah.
his best form. And then we talk about the Stecco power play, the Stecco precision play. Stecco, one of our longtime supporters. For me, it can't go beyond Yaku Kutsia's try. When
Dr.
he
Williams.
and Yaku Williams, yeah. What did I say, Yaku?
It's,
Yaku
yeah.
Williams.
They
Did I
look
say
similar.
Yaku? The flanker,
Yeah.
Yaku Williams. Sorry, when there's a Williams on the wing, how can you call it? Yeah. But Yaku Williams, outstanding for the SA under-20s in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Serious class. And the way he chased a fairly innocuous kick and turned it into a 7-pointer, well, a 5-pointer, because I think Jordan actually missed that conversion. I'm not sure. But we may have kicked it. I've lost my train of thought there. But how he chased it and scored it just summed up what Stecco's about, what the Sharks are about at the moment. There was that desperation, there was that power, and there was that precision. For me, he is our Stecco power play
A great shout.
of the weekend. And as JP Pietersen said afterwards, you've got a 21-year-old kid who was thrust into the cauldron against the Stormers in Cape Town in front of 52,000 people, and again at home to back it up. And he just looked like he had been there forever.
Spot on, mate. I mean, some guys just have that clutch factor, and Yaku is one of them. He showed it in the blitz box. Him and Hashim Pete, not the blitz box, the junior box. Him and Hashim Pete just scoring tries out of nothing. And some guys just, for whatever reason, the ball is magnetized to them. I mean, that cross kick to him, his double on the weekend. He's just one of those guys who's going to score. He's got the same fever that KLA became famous for, just clutch. And it's quite difficult to cover a guy like that because he can make the impossible possible.
And I just found in that moment, in chatting to Gab, because we do our little debrief on WhatsApp, that moment of Warwick taking his time, thinking that he had time to dot down the ball, and this 21-year-old kid just chasing there are no lost causes, the Springbok mantra, chasing what seemed like a lost cause, just summed up the two teams in the last fortnight for me in terms of one, desperation, and maybe one bit fatigued, but also points on the board. And we said it last week, the Sharks have played like someone who has to make the putt for par, and the Stormers were like, they're putting for birdie over these 2 weeks. It's a bonus if they get anything out of these two games. I didn't quite feel there was that desperation in their play that we saw from the Sharks, given the Sharks started the season, the fortnight 14th in the table. They're now up to 9th, and the Stormers started first and they're down to 3. Now, I know you are involved with the side of that, but desperation comes from a mental thing. If you've beaten someone 8 in a row, by the 9th time, you're not quite that switched on. So I also understand why there would be more desperation from the Sharks. But in that moment, the Yaku Williams moment, in getting that try, I felt that was definitive of the last fortnight when you look at the mental psyche of both teams.
Yeah, look, I think mental definitely plays a huge part in it. But I also think there's an element of, finding the balance, and I hate the word, but getting it right in terms of playing hard and playing smart. And I think maybe we've been playing hard, but giving our best. I think the efforts is there. You look at the effort, it's all there. The intention is right. But maybe we can just be a little bit smarter on a few things to get the results that we need. So, but like you said, this break comes at exactly the right time, mate. You've got Elsa and Arna on Pike's pillow there in the background, mate, from Frozen. Elsa famous for singing, let it go, mate. That's what we've got to do now. Let it go, move forward, and come back, break the ice here, come back, full heat.
No, and if you look at the league, and we keep on saying this, that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's how do you get to the playoffs? Some getting through the back door and they just qualify, but they honor. We think of Munster in that second season, taking 50 points in the Investec Champions Cup against the Sharks in Durban, and then went on a 7-match, all on the road, unbeaten run to win it in the 78th minute in Cape Town. So it's how do you end, not necessarily how you start. The Stormers, 8 wins from 8. Incredible start to the season. They just hit a desperate Sharks team that were outstanding, and their big name players came to the fore. And you've got to give them props for that. JP Pietersen is something different about the Sharks at the moment. A changing coach, a changing captaincy, and a change in leadership, and the integration of some young players in there. But I also felt like outside of Reinhoek's 22-second try, What used to define the Sharks in the old days was that opening 10 minutes. If you could withstand them, you were in with a chance. And it was like that. I think the 6 successive penalties the Stormers conceded before the yellow card to Paul de Villiers. But that was the Sharks of old. Just pounding away, intensity, physicality. That Kings Park crowd was roaring. And score. And we haven't seen that for a long time with the Sharks. We've seen
Totally.
this limp start to a match where an all-star 14 points up after 5 minutes against them. And that was so pleasing to see as a South African rugby supporter, more so than necessarily just as an independent watching the Sharks. I just thought they were outstanding in how they played.
Yeah.
The quality of the Stormers showed that they could still be 24-14 up with 30% possession, less field position, and some shocking decision making. They were still 10 points up with 30 minutes to play, and then and they were held up over the line from getting a bonus point. And if you actually break the game down unemotionally, there was a score in it until Yaku Williams's turned a nothing moment into a try. So there
I think you make a great point there, mate. Like in terms of the Sharks and how they've bounced back, like. In sport, it's better to make not the best decision and do it at 1,000 miles an hour, in other words, fully invested, than to make the right decision hesitantly. And I think the Sharks have got that. They're on the right part of that spectrum. Even when they're not necessarily doing the smartest thing, there's a conviction about them now that wasn't there before. That Sharks team, you looked at the roster, you were like, these Oaks are going to be power, but they played with doubt. And I think JP's erased that factor, and that's worth a lot. That is what generates momentum. When you can play fast because you have clarity, then I think good things happen, even when you're not necessarily 100% on point. Whereas your plan can be on point, but if you play with doubt and a lack of clarity and uncertainty, then things can start to go south. So I think that's definitely a factor in the Sharks' turnaround.
When we look at the league table now, again, big props to the Glasgow Warriors. Tested their squad depth. Went out and actually won a game against Munster. They top of the table, 44 points from 11 games. Leinster 40 from 11. The Stormers, a game in hand, 36. So a 5-point win. When they play again, we'll take them ahead of Leinster, Ulster, Cardiff, Munster, Bulls, Ospreys, Sharks, Lions. That top 10, I can't see the top 8 not coming out of that top 10 at the moment, mate.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I think everyone from 11 down is pretty much cooked. I agree with that. Ulster are a team that I've been watching for some time. I've got a feeling about them. And then obviously the pedigree of Glasgow and Leinster you can't overlook. And Cardiff are sneaky, right? They can ambush teams on their day, and they've been in and around the mix for some time now. So there's obviously something about the way they play. And Munster will feel like they are underperforming. So they'll always feel like their ceiling is higher than what they're currently outputting. And you'd expect them to bounce back at some point in the season, because it feels like they've been sneaking out of things with wins, and it's been pretty squeaky bum stuff. So yeah, loving the Sharks revival. Sad to see the Lions slipping a bit. Would love to have all 4 South African teams in the mix. Hopefully that's the case towards the sharper end of the season. And yeah, obviously hoping and all focus is on Stormers turning it back on and coming out firing again.
All right, now you are off to Stellenbosch review session. Take off that Sharks grey, put on your Stormers blue. Feel happy. The sun has come out. You do live in Cape Town. There's something to behold. URC is on a break now for a couple of weeks. Six Nations starts. Zels and I will be chatting Six Nations on the Keo Zels WhatsApp channel, on the SA Rugby Mag WhatsApp channel. Drink your castle beer. It is the beer of the URC, the fans' beer, and 100,000 Rand. If you register on SA Rugby Magazine, you get a free monthly digital mag download, and you also qualify to potentially win 100,000 Rand. That draw made in June. Zels, have a great day. You guys have a great week. And to the Sharks and the Bulls again, you guys were fantastic.